Hey, this is Jon Guerrero. Our guest today is Dan White. Dan has been on the show before. He was a judge in our David Bowie ZZ Top album fight, and he's our friend. He's a fellow Morier. He was introduced to our show and to us through Jay Moore. Today he talks with us on a specific topic. His brother Michael, a U.S. Navy veteran, has several times in the last couple of years visited a woman he met who lives in Iran. On his most recent trip, Michael snapped a photo of himself and his girlfriend and posted it on social media. That action led to his arrest, conviction, and sentence of 10 years in Iranian prison for publishing a personal photograph and insulting the Ayatollah. Of course, that story is more complex than it seems on its surface, and we get into it today with our friend and our guest, Dan White.
Lions Rock Productions.
This is Jay Moore.
This is Greg Proops.
This is Jordan Harbinger.
This is Dexter from The Offspring.
This is Nathan
This is
East.
Sebastian Younger.
This is Rick Marotta.
This is Stuart Copeland.
This is Mick Gillette.
This is Andy Summers.
Hey, this is Skunk Baxter.
This is Gabby Reese.
This is Rob Bell.
Hey, this is Jon Guerrero.
Hey, and this is Pete A. Turner.
This is Dan White, and you're listening to the Break It Down Show.
And now, the Break It Down Show with Jon Guerrero and Pete A. Turner.
Dan White he's our friend, and he's joining us on the Break It Down Show today. As he has before, he's an alumnus of the show, having done an album fight. But today he joins us just for himself, not to discuss an album, and to some degree to discuss his brother. His brother, Michael White, is a 46-year-old Navy veteran who found himself in Iran and was arrested and very recently sentenced to 10 years in prison in Iran for, if I get this right, he was sentenced to 10 years in prison for posting a private photo because he had a photo of himself with an Iranian citizen and posted it on social media. And then he also has insulted the Ayatollah. Is that correct?
Yeah. The picture he posted of his girlfriend, I guess, offended him. So that's what he got 10 years for.
Wow. So let's back up, though. He's got an Iranian girlfriend, and she's in Iran, and he was there to visit her?
Yeah, I would say about 6 years ago. And I'm bad with dates. I just remember he came to me and wanted to borrow some money to travel over there. And initially he wanted to borrow money, and I asked him what it was for, and he told me. I was like, no, that's insane. Just no. And he's been traveling back and forth ever since, on his own dime. And yeah, this last time they picked him up at the airport. He's getting ready to fly to Turkey.
So he's been in and out, pretty much traveling on his own free will. And this time, for no reason to suspect, just got picked up. Is that true?
Yeah. He's probably been over there probably half a dozen times.
Wow.
He's been actually flying into, I'm not sure if it's Saudi Arabia, and then crosses over from there. And I think he's flown in a couple of times directly from either Turkey or Saudi Arabia.
Aha. That's interesting. I know nothing about that travel path. Pete?
Yeah, well, I guess what I can say about that travel path is any path into Iran is treacherous, because any person who's not from Iran, is from the States, is a spy. So you can do it a dozen times, but every time you do it, the awareness of your presence goes up. And all you need is someone to have some intrigue about you, and they'll pay attention, and they'll wait, and they'll snap the trap on you. So 12 times is 12 times too many if you want to avoid getting arrested for being, and I'm not saying that Dan's brother's a spy, but it's not our reality that matters. We're not the ones with the handcuffs, if you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, originally, the charge was, there was a private complaint, and then, quote, a security-related charge, and they wouldn't specify. All of a sudden, we got word, I believe it was Sunday, that the charges had changed. He had been tried and convicted and sentenced, all in the same hearing.
Wow.
So a little confusing on how that's happening right now.
Well, they do things a little differently over there, that's for sure.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
So in a case like this, Pete, let me ask you, in a case like this, our relationship with Iran, we don't have a diplomatic relationship with Iran. We go through Switzerland, is that right?
Yeah, I think that's how we have to do. There's some kind of intermediary, or we're brought in through another way because of our relationship. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, Swiss is the Swiss has been the one that's been, you know, doing all the negotiations and stuff. And we actually, my understanding through the State Department was prior to them going public on January 7th, they were pretty close to getting him transferred to Swiss custody. He still would have served time, but I got to imagine a Swiss prison's a little bit better than Iran.
Yeah.
So let's back up a little bit with your brother because he's had an interesting path before he started getting to Iran. Because you don't just start like by saying I'm going to date a girl in Iran. He was in the Navy. He has cancer right now. And
Yes.
what kind of cancer? What's his treatment program like? Is he being cared for?
He probably is now. Now that the world stage is aware of his incarceration. He was actually misdiagnosed at the Naval Hospital, or actually, he was misdiagnosed. I'm sorry, at the VA, and he
Okay.
ended up going down to the Naval Hospital in San Diego. Had a huge tumor in his neck. I'm assuming it was his lymph node or something, and then got diagnosed. And he was actually in the hospital from about middle of February 2018 to the middle of March 2018, getting just huge bouts of chemo. I actually had, we were planning on relocating out to Arizona about that time. So I went ahead and took about a month off of work and just kind of went out and sat with him the whole time.
How does your brother? How do you guys get along? What's your relationship like?
It's cordial. I mean, growing up, I'm the middle of 7 kids. He's right up above me. He actually turned 47 back on January 24th. I mean, we've always gotten along, up until this whole incident with dating this girl, and I was firmly against it for reasons that it's not her, it's not anything other than the country, and him traveling back and forth. When the last day when he got checked out of the hospital, I drove him back to his apartment down in Mission, and we had discussed what the future was, and we had some words, and I told him, I says, this is not good, and I'm probably never going to see you alive. And that unfortunately is, it's looked like that's probably what's going to come into fruition here.
Yeah, I hate for you to be right about that, Dan.
No, it's a terrible situation, but anybody that knows me, I raise my girls and my 2 daughters, and I tell people decisions have consequences. He made the decision to go, and there's nobody to blame but himself. And it may sound kind of cold and harsh, but that's the reality of it.
When you tell him and encourage him to not go because you're afraid you'll never see him again, it's one part cancer, but it's 9 parts your actions are reckless. I'm assuming some kind of
Extremely reckless.
right. Does he have a pattern of this though throughout his life, or is this maybe the cancer affecting his judgment? Can you give us some insight on who your brother is?
He was always smart growing up, kind of techie, geeky, was into, wrestling, WWF and all that stuff growing up, and went in the Navy. He actually got picked up when he was right after not too far after his 18th birthday. He got picked up with a possession with intent to distribute, and judge gave an option, join the military or go to prison.
Mm-hmm.
And he joined the Navy, and he loved it. I mean, he loved it. And he got to travel the world, got to go over in the first Gulf War, and I think probably where he kind of maybe fell in love with the culture. Politically, he's gone to opposite ends of the spectrum. He campaigned for Obama, and this last time around, he voted for Trump. You don't get much more extreme than that. And he actually had converted to Islam, which I think probably clouded his judgment going over there, thinking that, maybe because it's something he practiced that, they would leave him alone. And, I mean, he's an American. dirty blonde hair and blue eyes. He's going to stick out like a sore thumb.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. So in this conversion, how did he meet this girl?
Same way anybody does something like that online.
Mhm.
I'm not 100% sure, if it's something he went looking for. I just know that he met her online and they started conversing, and because he had come to me, some years back, probably 6 years ago, maybe, and had asked to borrow $4,000, and I'll help any of my family out. And when I asked him what it was for, and he told me, I just kind of laughed and told him he was crazy,
Yeah.
and told him no way, I won't contribute to something like that.
Yeah. I mean, helping your family through a tough spot or whatever is one thing, but for something like that you deem risky, you get to have a talk with your brother. That's what brothers are for.
Yeah.
How did he get the money to go then? You didn't give it to him. Where does he go to accomplish that?
Through the grapevine, I kind of heard that he went out, eventually got a personal loan to go the first time, with things that happened while he was in the Navy. And this is something I can't divulge or can't go into too much, but he ended up getting, by his words, a settlement from the military,
Okay.
and which basically allowed him to travel many more times over there.
So, yeah, let's not get into the stuff you can't get into. But he's also, well, the FBI wants to talk to him as well. So you've got a brother who has these questionable decisions. Now the FBI is interested. Can you get into the FBI aspect of who your brother is?
Um, they have some suspicions that since he's converted, that maybe his intentions aren't so pure. That's kind of about as far in it I think I can go, but they definitely want to have a talk with him if he comes back.
Well, that's pretty interesting because you've got the government of Iran is suspicious of him because he's traveling there. He's popping in and out. He's got a girlfriend. I don't know the details of how they feel about that, but I imagine that there are some cultural issues that the government's kind of leery of when it comes to a Westerner dating an Iranian woman. And then there's the fact that he's converted to Islam, which, hey, great for him if he's found something there. But it does make the FBI go, hold on a minute. You've converted to Islam and you've traveled to Iran several times. It's worth taking a look. So for these things, your brother never really, he didn't think that he was raising suspicions? Or did you have any conversations with him about that?
I don't. I think he knew. He probably had the mindset that he wasn't doing anything wrong. So if push came to shove, he felt that possibly you know they weren't going to say anything to him. This last time, when I spent all those weeks with him down in the hospital, I'm not too keen on the culture. Seemed his eating habits were no different than me and him going to a restaurant before.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So he wasn't like practicing or reading a Quran or anything when he was in the hospital. That might have been being around a bunch of naval personnel and stuff like that. Maybe he didn't want to raise suspicions, but like he says, his change politically over the last probably 3 or 4 years, and just his demeanor in general. I mean, it really went from one side to the other.
What do you attribute that to? I mean, do you have a sense for what the heck is going on?
Something like that, probably. I don't know. I mean, he had cancer for about a year before he found out. Maybe something was boiling chemically.
Yeah, you always have to consider that that's a possibility. I mean, anything that happens to us physically affects us hormonally, and it affects our reactions to things, and it affects the way that we make connections in our brain. The rest of us may think it seems irrational, but suddenly becomes rational to the person who's thinking it. So that could very well be. What is it we can hope for here in this situation? As you've got a brother who's in some place that you hope they let him go and he comes home safely. Is there a path that anybody has told you, hey, look, as long as we as long as we can do this, this, and this, we're looking at outcomes that are potentially this, this, and this. Is there anybody who can talk to you on that level?
I have talked to a couple of people in the government, and they obviously are letting the Swiss go through this. Iran, you know, just was a day before yesterday, hopes for a new nuclear deal. I am firmly against our country negotiating with them. And like I says, it may sound callous, but he's in this position because our previous predecessor presidents, and I'm not just blaming one, but they've been willing to negotiate. And if you don't deter that kind of behavior, all it is opening the door for future Americans to be snatched. And if we don't put a stop to that now, I mean, it's 2, 3, 4 years down the road, it's just going to happen again. And as for hopes, yeah, I mean, I would love for my brother to come home and, he gets the treatment he needs. But I'm a realist. I don't anticipate ever seeing him again alive.
If he does come back as a counterintelligence agent, someone who's been snatched up, sure, he's been beaten and everything, but yeah, I'm gonna have some real questions as to, you know, what's happened to him. I mean, ideally, someone's gonna, if he hasn't been approached by Iran, he's going to be approached by us. I would hate to see him go back. He almost can't stay here and almost can't stay there if he ever gets out of there. But what are your thoughts? Like, could he just live abroad somewhere happily, or are we going to be back in the situation again where he's in some other country doing something that causes trouble?
If he's done something to break the laws here, then he needs to come back here and face the music.
Okay.
I would rather have him in an American prison than anywhere else for just the fact that he's at least going to get some treatment here,
Right.
and he's he's here.
But this is such a crazy thing. So we're talking to Dan White. He's the brother of the Navy guy you've been reading about in the news, who was arrested, tried, and convicted. 10 years, right, Dan?
Got 10 years.
10 years. I know you can't get into the background dealings of what's happening with the Swiss and with us and everything, and trying to work out his deal. But do you think, given a relatively normal jail sentence, can he survive 10 years if he's getting cancer care, or was his cancer such that no?
No, there's no way. There's no way. I mean, you know, there's no way. I mean, getting treatment down in the Naval Hospital, he lost probably 50 pounds.
Wow.
So, and I would imagine our medical care is head and shoulders above pretty much anybody else.
Yeah, I would imagine. So one of the things is, a lot of people have approached you and your mom about this case, and your mom has talked, more than anybody else, it seems. But it seems that your mom also is struggling with the reality that's going on here. What's kept you from wanting to talk to the outlets that are out there talking, and what are your thoughts on your mom's comments on what's happening?
So the history there, I actually haven't talked to my mother in probably at least a decade.
Wow.
There's a disconnect between her and her children, which is sad, and then there's reasons behind that. The quote family spokesman is speaking for her and not the rest of the family.
Okay.
I believe the media has tapped into her, and I don't. Uh, I have an opinion on it, but I'll keep those opinions to myself. As when it comes to her, the media, I mean, they're running with it, the narrative that they want, or I honestly don't believe that she is as concerned as she may appear to be.
Huh.
And there's a reason for that, but like I says, I don't want to get into why she is the way she is with the rest of the family. But me and my brother Jeremy and my sister Mandy had talked about, and we were kind of encouraged not to say anything while this was going on, just in case there was a possibility before he was sentenced, we can get him transferred or get him out. And now that he's been sentenced, there's still, like I said, some things that are going on that we really can't talk about. But as a general whole, we can kind of start saying our piece at this point.
Wow. I wish I had something more to say than that. I'm sorry that your relationship is such that, as you describe it, families go through stuff. And it's tough enough to go through a situation like this when your brother's in a foreign country. And you got to, put your thoughts in that direction to have other family dynamics. And of course, we all have other family dynamics, but this is a tough one to pile onto it. Your siblings, how far apart are you geographically? Are you at least close together with your other siblings?
So my sister Lisa was the oldest. She's no longer with us. She's would have been probably, I don't know, early 50s maybe. We got a older brother Jeff that's probably about 52, 53. He's up in Alaska somewhere. I haven't talked to him in many, many years. He's had some substance abuse issues. And then my brother Mike is, 2 years older than me. Then there's me. I'm 45. My brother Steven, who's about a year and a half below me. I haven't really talked to him because of his substance abuse issues. And got my youngest brother Jeremy. He is 30, I want to say 38 now. 38, 37, 38. He's actually on his 2-week tour down in Southern California for the Air Force for his reserves. And my youngest sister Mandy, she's out in Florida. My brother Jeremy is in Phoenix, about 5 miles from me. So
okay, well, family dynamics being what they are, I hope you guys can find some comfort in each other and mend those relationships, and maybe that'll be some good news that comes out of this. Man, I'm really at a loss for words. I don't envy your situation. I don't envy your brother's situation. The fact that he's over there, I hope he can just get some treatment. I hope that he can stay in touch or something, that you can hear more news about him and that he comes home safely.
Yeah, me personally, I don't think it's really. I failed to just wrap my mind around the whole situation, and of course my wife is, when I do get stressed out, and to me that's the hardest part for me, is the stress of it. My wife has been, I mean, she's been my most of my support. I mean, she's been there for me. I've gotten, Pete, of course, is, every time we've talked about it, he's always concerned, about how I am feeling. And like I said, I haven't really wrapped my mind around it. And maybe if I do, the reality of it will sink in, and at that point I'll have to deal with it. But right now, honestly, the thing that's making, stress me out about it is my youngest sister. She's taking it kind of hard. My brother Jeremy is kind of in the same boat I am, where we're just frustrated with my brother Mike's decision to put his family in this position.
Yep.
Do you think, does he really care about this Iranian woman? Is he capable of loving someone? I mean, how you know his state of mind as much as anybody who can talk right now. What do you think his state of mind is right now?
Right now, I think I'm kind of hoping it's regret.
Yeah.
I'm hoping it's regret, and I'm hoping it's sinking in. That way, if there is a chance he does come back, that it'll be bad enough that he'll remember it.
Wow. Yeah.
Damn.
I don't know how he can't right now be regretting his decision to go over there. That's a tough thing to say, and I know that's a big dose of tough love. But yeah, I mean, I guess in your position, I think that I would have to feel that as well, because you're right. I mean, it's his decision, and I mean, he's got to reconcile with the fact that he put you and everybody else through this. And I'm not being callous, because right now the one who's got it the toughest is him.
Yeah.
That's it. And honestly, I think it was about a day or two after, because this came to light on January 7th. I believe it was a day or two after. was actually listening to your guys' interview with Phil Green.
Nice.
And at that point, I was kind of like, Phil's going through something that I was listening to it like this guy is acting, amazingly strong, and it was really, really tugging on my emotions. And I realized at that point that, physically I'm fine, mentally I'm fine. I still have a wife and 2 kids and still have a mortgage, and we got 2 girls going into college this year, and I still have a life to live.
Yeah.
I can't let someone else's decisions affect that. I have a responsibility as a father and a husband first. And Phil's situation, I mean, I have trouble, thinking about that interview now and not just, just wanting to hug the guy.
Right.
Yeah. We all can, we all can hope we would be as composed and as just composed and put together as Phil is in this situation. But it does give us plenty of perspective. You're right. Your responsibilities. I'm glad that you have a healthy outlook on that fact that you got a couple of daughters and a wife who are counting on you, and you have a life to live, and your responsibilities to them and to yourself. So we'll put those first. We'll hope for the best for your brother. How do you and Pete know each other anyway?
I guess through Jay
Okay.
Moore and the whole Twitter thing, and
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just it's kind of strange how it all evolved, and I'm glad it's evolved the way it has, because I mean Pete, I can't put into words just his concern, for my well-being, and that means a lot to me.
Well, this is the thing about all this stuff, Dan, is like your brother's in a situation that's regrettable, and we regret it. He may not have the capacity to regret it, and so until I know otherwise, I'll give him that. But what I do regret is his actions having an impact on his family. That again, I can't imagine he would want this to happen to people that he cares about. And I care about that. I care about you. Heck, I care about everybody. But you're a genuine person. You haven't tried to use this opportunity to grandstand. Can you imagine if LeVar Ball had this unfortunate circumstance? We couldn't get rid of the guy, but that's not how you do things. And I care. I care about you. I'm interested in how your brother, if by some impossible chance, and people are working on it, he was able to come back. Can he have a regular relationship with you or other people? Or I don't know how you come back from this, and I can appreciate where you're at emotionally, but that doesn't mean I don't want to check in on you and make sure that you know that.
This episode of the Break It Down Show is brought to you by Lions Rock Productions.
That's us.
We publish, evaluate, and develop podcasts just like this one, consult others to build their own, and create associated content and content marketing strategies.
So if you're launching or expanding your social media presence, your business or your personal brand, or if you just want to take your media presence to the next level,
reach out to us on Twitter
at Pete A. Turner
or at JohnLG69
at the Break It Down Show.
There's 1,000 ways to get a hold of us.
Now enjoy the show.
And I can appreciate where you're at emotionally, but that doesn't mean I don't want to check in on you and make sure that you know that however you handle this impossible situation is probably going to be fine, because no one has the right answer on how to deal with this.
No, you talk about LeVar Ball and his exploitation of his family. I've been probably no less than 40 interview requests. CNN, just so many of them. And I knew, I'd like to talking with my siblings, we knew once this moment had passed where he was sentenced, we could probably open up a little bit.
Yeah.
And the reason I want to talk to you is because of your sensitivity towards the situation, your thoroughness, and the ability to make your listeners understand that, whether it be, politics, race, whatever, that it was going to come down to just the understanding of the situation.
Yeah. Well, we're not trying to sell Cadillacs either, and God bless the folks that want to try to do that. We just want to get to the bottom of the story and understand it and how it's impacted, How does someone go from, serving our country to being arrested in a foreign country for a social media post. And I guess I'll step up on my soapbox a little bit and go, look, our president does weird things. He texts things, he says things that clearly upset the most of the nation, right? But he can say that we have freedom. We don't arrest people for making a social media post. We have a wonderful place to live, and we can't lose sight of that. And for whatever reason, Dan's brother, that's why I wonder about his mental capacity, is to go from this extreme where everybody's got a shot to that extreme where he's essentially done. No one would even care that he put a picture of his girlfriend up on social media here. It wouldn't even register. He might not even get a single like, but he got 10 years over there. And that, it's a little soapboxy, but I don't mind saying we got to get some perspective on what the world is. And when we try to figure these impossible problems out with Iran, with North Korea, any place that wants something, you know, it's not like you'd want it to be. And I wouldn't encourage anybody to go to Iran on a lark just to prove that they could do it, because they don't have to cooperate with you. They do think that you're out to get them, and they've got a right for thinking that. We've treated that country very poorly in our past.
Yeah, yeah. I was looking at some of the social media posts on some of the websites that were putting out his story, and they were all pretty much the same thing as what was he thinking, and that is the $1 million question. What is he thinking?
What do you think he's thinking? You know him best.
You know, I've been all over this country. I've been on a few dates in my time, and there is there is no there is nothing that could get me to that point where I'm traveling to another country to see a woman. And I say that kind of tongue in cheek, because me and my wife were talking about this, and she's like, "Well, she's up in Canada right now for work." She's like, I don't even want to travel to Canada. I don't, I got to go to Mexico on Wednesday, and I hate those trips. I know that when I go down there on business, that I'm relatively safe, but I also know that making the decision to agree to go, which I don't have to do, that there's a chance I could be murdered down there.
Yeah.
But it's a decision that my family understands that I don't have to say yes, but it will help myself in my future career.
Yeah.
But I can't imagine, unless my wife, were put in jail up there in Montreal, I can't see myself going up there.
Yeah. What do you want to make sure the world knows about this whole situation, Dan? Like, what are your big thoughts?
It's just as simple as think before you act. Really, that's think about. I tell this to my daughters. You guys are going to make mistakes. You got to take a moment and think about the possibilities. Whether it be shoplifting, which, knock on wood, I don't believe they've ever done, or you know any situation in life. Just think about it before you make that decision, and think about how it's not going to affect you. How's it going to affect your family? And the situation with my brother, I think they're probably. I mean, there is a potential that maybe his mental capacity has been compromised. Because of his irrational behavior over the last 6-7 years. If mental health is stigmatized, and I mean, our military and just anybody that needs help, they should reach out. If you know somebody, reach out.
Well, I have some things going on in my family right now that are that have to do with mental health issues, and one of the problems that we're having is that we have a situation where a member of my family is we think suffering a chemical imbalance, and the problem that we're having is that we can't do anything about it, because essentially if your family says that you're having a chemical imbalance or, an episode, a mental health episode, the police, if the police come and check on you, they really only ask you two things: are you going to hurt yourself? Or are you going to hurt anybody else? And if the answer to that question is no, to those questions is no, the police are really not at liberty to do anything, because it's not against the law to have a mental health episode. It's only against the law to hurt somebody if you have a mental health episode or do something that harms someone else. So in the meantime, we're having a hard time convincing this person to get treatment on his own, and that's our only method of getting him some help, is to convince him that he needs to get some help. So if we're going to have a mental health conversation in our country, I enjoy our liberties. I think that our freedom is great, and this episode really highlights the most important part of why our freedoms are great, and we get to be critical of our governmental officials, and we get to stand up for what we believe in and say it out loud, and not suffer persecution because of it, or imprisonment. But as we have this conversation about mental health, I'm going to encourage everybody, just like you did, Dan, get help if you can get help. And if you're somebody who's got a family member who needs to get some help, I just really hope you can hang in there and help them get some help.
Yeah, mental health, it does, it runs in our family. So honestly, it wouldn't surprise me if his mood swing, or his just personality swing, was because of that. And I'm sure the cancer didn't help, and the chemicals that he was ingesting there. But he said this has been going on a long time, so I don't know.
Well, in one way or another, it runs in everybody's family.
Yeah.
And we just have to, hopefully keep an eye on each other and get help when we figure out that we need it, and get our family members to open their eyes to the fact that there's nothing wrong with getting help.
Yeah.
That's it.
And I will say that I don't know that you and Pete have ever met each other face to face, but your assessment of Pete is dead on. The one thing I will say about Pete is he never really ever thinks about himself. He's always really concerned with everybody else.
Yeah, it means a lot to me. Okay, how's this going? How are you doing? And there's been like I said, my wife has been amazing, and I when I married her, I married way up, way up.
Nice.
I mean, she's way above me. But Tish she lets me vent occasionally, but Pete's been awesome. Even a couple of text messages back and forth to Jay, and he's definitely understanding. And if I were able to wrap my mind around this and kind of let it sink in, I know that when that time comes, if it does come, that I'm able to actually react to it probably in a normal manner, that I know I've got a support system around me. And while that's comforting to know, I'm also trying to, the stresses of work and just trying to cope with the reality that he's probably never going to enter this country alive.
That's pretty heavy.
Hey, Dan.
Yeah.
Do you love your brother?
Very much, very much. If I could take this whole situation from him, and it meant that him never understanding it or never experiencing it, if me taking a bullet or something would just fix the whole thing, then I would be willing to.